Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. I am the founder and CEO of Tribune Teams. And here we go. Hey, welcome back. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and you are listening to 103.5 The Sun. I have such a treat for you guys right now. I'm going to turn up the phone volume, and Michael Hahn, do we have you on the line? Michael, are you on?
I'm here. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic today. It's a beautiful Monday.
Isn't it?
How are you doing? Yeah.
It is. I have to apologize. I'm still learning the technology for all of this stuff. And so it's been a little rocky this morning, but it's all good. We have you on. I'm so excited. Awesome. So I just want to introduce you to the listeners. And I'm going to read your bio because you are an extraordinary human, and I can't wait for everybody to meet you and know you. So let me read your bio. So Michael Hahn is a culture catalyst and an author of Hero Habits, The Guide to Thriving in Corporate America and in Life. His articles have been featured in Inc. magazine, Chicago Business Journal, Startup Magazine, Chicago Business Journal, and Chicago Tribune. Michael specializes in creating leadership experiences that level up leaders. In 2015, he won the Public Relations Society of American Award for Brand Management and Reputation for his work with Allstate Insurance. So, Michael, you are an author, you are a speaker, you're kind of a little bit of everything, and I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad everybody who's dialed in for us.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Michael. You've got this book called Hero Habits, and I called you a week or so ago, and I was like, hey, I need you to come on and tell us some morning hero habits. And so tell us a little bit about Hero Habits and kind of where that all came from.
Well, I was not a morning hero. Let's say that's where it started, Tina. I was really miserable. And so I knew something needed to change, and I just didn't know what it was. So the Hero Habits came to me as a result of being frustrated, upset, overwhelmed, wanting something different, and not really knowing what that was, but not really being open to change and to what might be possible for me. So really they came out of a place of, that ultimate fear, which was just grinding me to a halt.
Yeah. Doesn't that happen so often in life, right? We get scared to do something. We get scared to move forward. And what stops us? What stops us from moving forward?
Yeah, well, basically, if you distill the essence of the hero habits down, we're either fueled by one of two things. We're either fueled by fear or we're fueled by faith. And to me, it's like we got to have that vision. We got to know what we're going for, because otherwise the fear will try to keep us safe. The fear will start to spiral us into that negative downward spiral. And you know what? Our friends and family are sometimes the worst people for us, Tina, right?
Right.
Like, they want to keep us safe. They want to protect us, but ultimately they just feed that inner voice of ours. So really the hero habits came from, how do we overcome fear? How do we get faith? How do we create that vision? How do we do something, leave a leadership legacy, Tina? How do we do that?
Yes, I love that. So I had you on my show, Your Leadership Legacy. This is actually going to become your second debut on that podcast, right? But it's all about leaving a leadership legacy. So what does a leadership legacy mean to you, and how do hero habits apply or fit into that?
Yeah, so the person who left the biggest legacy in my life is my grandfather-in-law. I never met the guy. He passed away at 62 and a half, the year he retired, died of pancreatic cancer. But if you ask anybody in that family who is Papa or who is Dad or who is a super Papa, as we call him, everybody will tell you who he is. They'll name characteristics. Yeah. You'll almost believe that person is still alive and that they had experiences with that person.
Yeah. So how does that happen?
Yeah. Well, I think you have to create experiences, right? Because experiences drive our beliefs about what we can do and what we can't do, and those drive us to action or inaction, and then ultimately determine our reality. So to to me, it's about how do you create experiences with people that are lasting, that help them level up, that help them believe something about themselves, about what's possible, which was previously impossible. And that's kind of what Papa did. He sat around the campfire. He was a quiet guy, but when he spoke, those last words that he had, they lingered with you forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes a legacy, is just that lasting, lingering voice of positivity and optimism.
Yeah, yeah. And that was definitely the inspiration behind your leadership legacy. It was, I think that for me, so often I wasn't really paying attention to how I was showing up. And when I really sat down and took a look at, is how I'm showing up who I really want to be and the legacy that I really want to leave, I had to get really honest with myself and realize that I wasn't showing up like that, right? And so what did that process look like for you? So you hated mornings, we have all this stuff that happens. Like was there a wake up call? What was it that like really shook you to like, I have to make some changes, or I get to make some changes in my life?
I wish I could tell you what it was one time, but I think it happens more and more frequently, right, as we start to deviate path and stuff. But I remember I was working in the McDonald's corporate system. I had been working my way up the ranks, and I was like, something needs to change. And there was a organizational restructuring that happened, and the person who was my advocate, the person who was always there to make sure that whatever I had done was leveled up to leaders, that I had a voice and I had a say to senior leadership. She left the organization. She became a CFO of a sister company. And I was kind of left there by myself, and I said, is this what I want?
Yeah.
And, I realized like every night going home, eating cheese, having a glass of wine and bitching about the day, it was leaving me like what you said,
Yeah.
like feeling like I've become someone else. And I mean, I remember talking to my then fiance, now wife, like, I feel like I'm selling my soul every day.
Yeah.
And I started to gain weight. I started to be frustrated. Where it really showed up is in my personal relationships with my friends and my family. Like, they got the brunt of my frustration, my sarcasm. Yeah. And I just knew at that moment something needed to change. So here's the story. So I got a coaching degree from Coachville. I did all this stuff. I said, okay, I got that. Now it's time to go out and launch on my own. So in October of 2007, I decided to launch, and I think that's like 3 days later, the market crashed. Like 50% of my retirement was gone.
Yeah.
HR departments closed up budgets. And I realized, like, at that moment, I thought I was being punished by God. But what I realized is that he was preparing me for something bigger. Sure. And I didn't realize that till many years later. But it wasn't being punished. It was being prepared.
Right. So powerful. It's so powerful. I just was on a podcast, and the name of the podcast was Life is Happening for You, Not to You. And that reminds me of that. I mean, we have things that happen in our lives. Nobody's life is perfect, right? Things happen. And in those moments, like you said, we choose faith or fear. And so when we start talking about choices, because it's always a choice, right? Like whether we choose fear or faith is a choice. And when I think about Monday Morning Mojo and the reason behind it and kind of why I went down this path, it was because on Monday, like, I am not a morning person. This is a story that I've been telling myself for years and years. And so fear, comfort zone, all that kind of stuff would have said, no, don't do it. I really, like, I've gotten to a point in my life where when I feel the fear, I don't run from that anymore. I realize that I need to run to it. And so how do you see that show up? I know you speak all over the place, and you're an author and you've written this book and stuff like that. So how does that relay when you talk about fear and faith and just stepping into it? I'm sure that you see that in so many situations.
When you say that, there's a book that I first read that really, just the title alone should be able to shift people's minds. It's by Dr. Susan Jeffers, and the book is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Yeah. And I read that book, and I realized, like, a lot of what I considered to be fear was just excitement misrepresented. And I learned that through my breath, through changing my breath, that I could change that fear to excitement, that anxiety to excitement.
Yeah.
And what I realized is a lot of the things that I was doing were so exhilarating and new and out of my comfort zone that they should give me a little bit of fear,
Yeah.
but that by getting my breath and by focusing my breath, I could really help change that over. Because Tina's going to call me for the conversation today no matter what. Are you going to be ready or are you going to be nervous?
Yeah. Right. It's so true. It's a state of mind, right? It's choosing that I'm going to just not let that little inner voice of mine, because my inner voice is my worst enemy. I don't know about anyone else out there, but my inner voice, she can be my worst enemy if I let her be. And so part of some of the work that I see out there that I know you're talking about too is really, what are the tools out there? What are the hero habits out there that I can use when I'm feeling that ick, when I'm feeling like I don't want to move forward, when I'm sitting in that fear, when I can't see the faith side of it? Because when you're in it, it's hard. You're in it, And so what are tools that our listeners can use when you're in it, when you're in that fear, to come out and really just depend on that faith?
Yeah. So another book comes up. Before I tell you about what tools they have, there's another book. I think it's by Rick Hansen. It's called Taming Your Inner Gremlin.
Okay.
It's like a workbook. And basically the gist of it is that voice in your head, Tina, and everybody who's out there, you've got this voice in your head. And a lot of times we let that voice only speak to us.
Yeah.
He talks about it's hidden, it's in the corner, it's in the dark. How do you shine a spotlight on that voice? Let it speak, find its truth, and then how do you use that as fuel, or how do you change course based on the what it's trying to say? So that's from Rick. I think it's a great book. You should read it. It's a workbook. If you really want to dig into it and work through it, it's going to provide transformation.
Awesome.
For me personally, hero habits. The number one keystone hero habit is designing a winnable game. And when I was back there and I was dreading Mondays from 3 o'clock on Sunday when the NFL games initially ended, like I would start to dread Monday, I realized I hadn't designed a winnable game.
Yeah.
I had done what my parents told me. They said, Michael, get good grades, get a good job, go to a good school, and then you'll have the good life. And like many of us, like the good life for our parents is average for us. We want more, and they want more for us. So I was accepting an unwinnable game. I was seeing myself being, fat, bald, and like miserable in that corner office with a whole bunch of money in my 401k.
Right.
But like every day until then, I was losing a piece of myself. So I said, what does it look like? What does winning look like to me now and going forward? And so I started to paint this picture about what it could be. And I remember I was out networking, right? The stock market crashed. I'm out to trying to make a name for myself. And at a networking event, there was somebody from a local university who said, we would love to have you speak. Would you be willing to speak? And I said, sure. So they had me come in to speak to a group of students. And I remember I was clumsy and it was really clunky. But she gave me this envelope at the end, and when I opened it, I had $100 check, and I was like, you can get paid for this? And
That's
it's
great.
like my eyes opened up, and I realized, like, wow, there's something different than the in-the-box corporate world, corporate hierarchy that I had seen, and it just blew my mind open. So the dream was, be an influencer, help inspire people, and my mission is to create a world of thank God it's Monday, to unleash the superhero in people. So that's just a little snippet.
I didn't even know that, and I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I love how you say paint a picture of what it could be. I know a lot of the times when I'm working with clients from a coaching perspective, one of the very first things that we work on is clarity. Like, what do you really want? Because you talked about programming, about, we grow, from the time that we're born until however old you are today, right now, we have certain programming in us that, how our parents raised us, we went to school, whatever that experience was like, our adult experiences, all these experiences in our life that tell us what reality should be. And so often people just accept that, for what it is. And the reason I asked you about a wake-up call is because I've heard so many people that they have this like wake-up call, and I had my wake-up call, and it was like, wait a second, maybe this isn't maybe this isn't what it's supposed to be. Maybe there's something different or something out, like something was pulling at me, right? And so when you paint the picture of what it could be and what you really want, now it's out there. And it's about just having the discipline to continue to go for it and not live in that fear. It's like consistently being in that faith lane instead of that fear lane.
Yeah. I love that. The faith lane. Yeah.
Yeah. And accepting an unwinnable game. That was big. That was super powerful for me as well. So let's talk about, when I talked to you earlier, it was like, what are morning habits? But I know that they're bigger than just morning habits. It's really, it's a lifestyle, it's a mindset and all that. But if you had 5 that you would say were the most important to you, how do you talk about those? What do those look like?
All right. So the first thing I have to do, and I would suggest that every listener do, is you have to put on your emotion for the day before your feet hit the ground. Mm-hmm. That means not laying in bed all day, but it means that before you get up, don't just take on the dread and drama from yesterday. You got to put on what you want. You got to, and a lot of times, for me, it's prayer, it's gratitude, it's thankfulness. And when I do that, I can absorb some of the chaos from the day before my attitude starts to slip a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm bulletproof, but if I can put on my emotion, I can be grateful for what I have, then as little first world problems start to come up, I can absorb the traffic. I can absorb the spilled milk. I can absorb, the kids, needing the karate gear brought to the school or something. But without putting on those emotions to start, and I say, before your feet hit the floor, you have to put on your emotions, and before you touch your phone, you have to put on the emotions you want for the day.
Right.
That phone, it's meant to be a tool, but I tell you, it's a temptation more than anything.
It's crazy. It's really becoming an epidemic. It really is. And I speak from myself first. I mean, yesterday, it was okay, disconnect. Let's spend some good quality time and let's disconnect. And I mean, I found myself looking at my phone, across the room going, I really should check that. No, you don't need to check that. So it's really something that I think in society today we need to watch. Definitely.
Yeah. And then the next thing, Tina, it's about influence, right? You have to make sure you're being influenced by the right things. What's coming? What are we allowing to come into us? And so many of us have grown up in a time where you get the newspaper, you watch the news, you do all this stuff, but the news is negative, right? How do we allow ourselves to have positive influences? Some of us have outgrown our relationships. We're allowing people to influence us who have constant negativity and dread and drama. So although we want to assume positive intent with all the people that surround us, sometimes we need to do a relationship reorg and get some of those people out of our life for a period or a season.
Yeah, relationship reorg. I love it.
And to me, it's about music. I used to think I was a tough kid. I used to listen to, rap and stuff. And I still have those songs and those lyrics in my head, and I don't want to believe what some of those lyrics are telling me now. Yeah. So now I start my morning with, I've got my morning revival mix where I've got my Christian music mix on there. I've also got my pump up mix, and I'm going to tell you my songs that are on my pump up mix.
That's
here.
Awesome.
Let me just.
I'll add them to my playlist for Monday Morning Mojo.
All right. So Giant by Calvin Harris. Amazing song. Okay. Basically, it's, I am a giant. And it just makes me realize, yes, I have my place in the world, and my job is to help inspire other people to feel like they're a giant. There's a song called All In by Matthew West. It basically talks about standing at the edge of the ledge, and instead of falling back to fear, you dive all in, head first, all into the vision and the dream. And then to me, there's this song, Thunder. It's my walk-on music for my keynote presentations. And one of the lyrics in there, besides it's lightning, then the thunder, right? We think about lightning, but then there's the thunder that comes after, which is, it's anticipated, it's even more exciting. But there's a song in there, a lyric that talks about this person who had kind of been judging the author of the song, and he says, you're way up there in the nosebleeds watching, and I'm here on stage performing, and it makes me realize all the little stuff that we go through every single day, trying to be our best self, trying to be a giant, like all this stuff that could knock us down, there is a purpose, there is a reason, and we just have to endure, because this is just a test. This isn't the main thing, right?
Right.
This isn't that we're being punished. It's that we're being prepared, and everything's preparing us.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So those are three of
So
them:
influence.
Giant, All In, Thunder.
Yeah.
Love them. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, music is so important, and I keep telling people, like, send me songs, because I have a playlist as well when I'm feeling in the dumps, and it's those tools that you're talking about that are so incredibly important to have in your back pocket, because life is going to take you down. It's just what it is. And if you have it, when you have those tools in your back pocket, you can shift and move out of that so much quicker and so much faster. And I want to go back to your gratitude, because gratitude for me, if I'm feeling like, if I find myself in judgment or if I find myself in comparison, my tool that I bring out is gratitude, because when I think about it, and I start thinking about all the things that I have to be grateful for, there's absolutely no reason that I'm ever in judgment or ever in comparison. And a lot of it is because of the stuff that you just said. So the whole gratitude thing, and the reason why I wanted you to come on and talk about hero habits in the morning is because, like, your first hour in the morning, it will dictate the rest of your day. And so having a routine in the morning that includes music and gratitude and I am affirmations and all that really positive stuff really does set your day up, right?
Yeah. Tina, you remind me of conversations I've had with leaders, and I asked them, like, what do you do in the morning, right? Because just you and I are just so hungry to understand what other people do.
Yeah.
And a lot of the leaders I talked to said, hey, look, I canceled my gym membership. And I said, but you work out every day. And they said, yeah, I created this little gym in my basement, and that way I can nail it for 15 minutes, minimum 15 minutes. That's what I have to do when I get down there.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, that's crazy, because my gym is 5 minutes the wrong way from where I want to go. And I'm like, 5 minutes isn't a big deal. But, getting there and having accountability to be at class at 5:30 in the morning, that's great.
Yeah.
But I was making excuses. And, sometimes when you say yes to too many things, Tina, like, you say no to the wrong things, like spending time with the kids or family time with the spouse, and I was doing too much of that, so I canceled my gym membership. I get out there for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, at minimum 5 or 10 minutes. This morning I was out there doing my backups on the exercise ball and my sit-ups. I got my dog sitting there next to me. He's licking me and poking me and doing all that. We've named the dog Hero.
Nice. I love it.
And, I get out there for 10 or 15 minutes. I feel good. I get a little sweat on before I go take my shower. And then one of my mentors, Bob Mallow, told me, Michael, you got to take a cold shower every day. And I'm like, I love my warm showers.
I know, right?
Like,
especially in the winter.
I
live in
love
Wisconsin.
And, I was like, I don't know how you do that. Well, when you work out in the morning, you naturally want a cold shower to cool off so you don't sweat through your clothes. And I realized, like, there's times where I don't sweat for a couple days in a row, and I'm like, you know what? I miss it. I need that natural cleansing. I need that movement, because otherwise I'm going to be fueled by adrenaline and caffeine, and I know that is a losing proposition. Adrenaline and caffeine are not sustainable fuel sources for me.
No. But a lot of people live like that day after day after day after day, right? And don't even realize it.
It's our programming. Our society has programmed us to want the next thing. And, there's two other hero habits. We won't get to all of them, but one of them is you have to choose happiness. And like you said, it's a choice. Choosing happiness is not our default setting. No. We default to misery. We default to what we don't have. We compare ourselves on social media not to the 5 or 6 people who are struggling and showing us their vulnerable side. We compare ourselves to the people who are out there in Cancun, in Mexico, traveling the world, and we say, why can't I do that? Yeah. And then we purposely sabotage ourselves by, if our next success is a football field, and as we work our way down the football field, we don't stop and choose happiness and celebrate those milestones. We say that when we get to the end zone, then we'll be happy. The problem with that is that the football field just gets longer and longer and extended and extended, and we push off our happiness until something happens. And more often than not, it's some negative physical health experience that causes us to stop, to step back, to reflect, and then to say, you know what? I am so happy I caught this. I am so happy I've paused. I am so happy that, and it's that gratitude that happens to us one way or another. And so let's just be proactive about it. Let's just choose it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, I've had people really, because I have a retreat and my retreat's name is Choose Happy. And I've had people that have like kind of come back on me about that. You know, there are things in life that you can't choose. And I'm like, no, you can choose happy every minute of the day. You can choose happy even when things are not perfect, right? I think people think that in order for me to choose happy, my life has to be perfect. And that's completely backwards, right? We choose it regardless of what's going on in our life. And it's the mental state and choosing that side of the path that really keeps us moving forward. When we don't choose that happy path, that's when you talk about living in misery, and it feels good, right? Like there's been many times when I'm like, no, I'm in misery right now, and it just feels good.
Yeah.
But it's having the tools to really be self-aware, understand that you're in that spot, and then go, you know what? Right now, right here, I get to choose happy, and I get to work myself through this and out of this state.
Beautiful. And if you can't choose happy, here's what you do. Just assume positive intent. Because if you can assume that this is happening for a reason, that it's not punishment, it's preparation, then you can say, okay, at least I'm not going to go down the negative spiral.
Yeah.
At least if I'm not going to go to misery, at least let me just stay neutral, and then let me stay open to the present moment, right? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes God wraps gifts in a problem. And sometimes we get so focused on that problem that we forget to unwrap the gift. And if we can just assume positive intent that this situation, which isn't what we wanted, which wasn't what we planned, that there's some good in it, if we can stay present, we can find that. But so often, people don't focus on being here. They focus on being there, or what's next, or what happened. And you are great at that. Just being present in the moment opens you up to so many more opportunities. I wish we could just cast a magic wand, boom, and shift people back to being in the moment. Like looking in someone's eyes, there's no better way to be in the moment, because you feel that like awkwardness after like 5 seconds. Yeah. But it's that emotion that allows us to experience like, what does love feel like? What does fear feel like? And how do I stay in a neutral state?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's just so much of what you just said. So much. It's funny. I went to a retreat one time and came home, and I'm like, hey, Al, come here, my husband. And I was like, hold my hands for a second and just look at me. And so he goes, okay. So he takes my hands and we're looking at each other in the eyes. He's like, okay, now what? Right. And I was like, no, I just look at me. Like, you know what I mean? Because it was so powerful when I learned that, when I learned this technique, that we're always so worried about either hanging on to what's happened in the past or future tripping, and like, I can't do anything until everything's perfect and until I get to that state or status or whatever it might be, that we miss being in the moment and we miss being present. And here's where I feel like it's an epidemic right now, because our world is moving faster today than it ever has in the past. And we live on this hamster wheel. I lived on this hamster wheel. And when we live on a hamster wheel and we don't pay attention to what's really happening in the moment, life passes us by. And like you said, we miss those opportunities. And we're so connected as a society that if I'm having issues at home, I'm taking them to work. And if I'm having issues at work, I'm taking them home. And it's just this new kind of like, it's this new thing that we need to really, really watch carefully, because it's that whole mindfulness and mindset and all that kind of stuff. Because if we don't, you wake up one day and you're super burned out. So I love where you're going with that. Yeah, I totally. Yeah, totally have been there. That's kind of when you wake up and go, wait, am I really living my life on my terms, or am I living my life because of everything I thought was reality? And so it's just such a good question to ask yourself, right? So anybody who's listening out there, something that you can do this week to really, really get clear is just to sit down and say, what do I really want? And how do I want to show up? And what does that look like? And yeah. So Michael, if people are out there and they're like, Michael is awesome, which I know they're saying, how does someone get a hold of you? How does someone get in touch with you?
All right, let's do this. One more thing came up for me that I want to give everybody who's listening here. So here's the deal. I learned something called a 3-breath hug. When you get home from work, our typical response is to talk about what's wrong with the day. Here's what you do. Just go hug your spouse. Hug your spouse for 3 breaths. Not 3 seconds, not 30 seconds. Just hug for 3 breaths and try to get in rhythm with your breathing. Oh my gosh, what a connection before you leave the house, before you really get into whatever the evening routine looks like. We do it when we go to the airport and we have someone drop us off. We do it when bigger things happen in life.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make it a habit?
Yeah, I love that.
That's another one of my tips. All right, so how do people find me?
Yes.
So I deliver my keynote presentation, Hero Habits, How to Thrive in Corporate America and in Life, to organizations, to associations. I would love to come to your work. I'd love to come to your tribe and to be able to share this message. You can go to michaelhahnspeaker.com, michaelhahnspeaker.com. Check out my Hero Habits presentation. Give me a call. I'd love to hear what you're trying to create over there. And you know what, Tina, if there's some listeners on the call who want my book or want the free book, they can just go to my website, go to my contact me page, just say, hey, look, I heard you on Tina's radio show, and I'd love to be able to get your book. I'll give the first 10 people who reach out a free copy of Hero Habits.
Awesome.
Signed,
That's amazing.
Sent out.
That's amazing. I have the book right here. I'm actually looking at it. And it's a great book. It really, really is. You did a really, really great job on it. So I would encourage you guys, run to get that book. And if you're not one of the first 10, go buy the book, because it really, there's a bunch of wake up calls in there, and it really, really helped me as I read it. So, Michael, I want to thank.
Let me love on you for a second, Tina. Let me love on you for a second. For everybody who's out there, Tina is a fantastic person. She just has sunshine coming out of her soul. Just do whatever you can to help her continue to bring this powerful love legacy journey forward. Whatever you can do, whether it's going out there and commenting on her Facebook page or making connections for her, please do that, because she is doing great work. She's doing God's work. She's doing connecting to the universe, whatever you believe in. Help Tina out, because she'll never ask for it, but she could always use it.
I appreciate
Tina, you're
that.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're just as awesome. So much so that I've had you on twice. I love your message. I love the love that you're putting out into the world as well. When we talk about fear and faith, right? It's the same thing as love and fear. So you got 2 options, love, or not. And I believe that love is what's going to save this planet. So yeah, that's my message, and that's. I'm just looking at every way, just like you are, Michael, to really get that message out there. So I really appreciate that. All right, you guys, that is all we have for Michael. Michael, thank you so much for being on. I adore you. I think you're awesome, and we will talk soon.
All right, bye, everybody.
All right, we'll talk to you later. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.